Hey guys, so today I'm going to talk about Medalist, a manga series, and it has 11 volumes in total, but I could find only 4 in my bookstore. And I'm just really hyped up about this one. I finished it today, and even when I saw it for the first time, I looked through it and I was like, this is good. This needs an anime. This is the next Blue Lock thingy, but in a more optimistic, girly way. So, by the way, it's going to get an anime next year in the beginning. So, the story is about Inori and Tsukasa, but I'm actually not sure if I should present her first or him first. So, they are equal, both of them are protagonists. And basically, Tsukasa becomes the trainer of Inori, and they have a lot in common, but as many things in common as they also have parallels between them, and I really enjoyed that about this story, that we get to see two sides of a very similar story and how it goes. So both of them are outcasts for different reasons. He started ice skating later than usual, and she is almost getting to that point, but she is meeting him, and chances, and better said, the creativity of the author makes it in such a way that they get paired up and he becomes her trainer. Now, in the beginning, we see no support, not a bit of support for Inori, and also not for him, I mean, not as a trainer, but when he started. But after this, I want to say that as the story progresses and they show their skills, they get quite a lot of support, and that's something that really fascinated me, because people are not giving you support in the beginning, even in real life. I'm not talking about the manga in this exact moment, but once you start to show a little bit of progress or some very good stats about what you're doing there, everyone gives you support, and that's really messed up, but it also makes the story very realistic. So if I were to put it in a genre, I would say that it's sports, obviously, but it's closer to slice of life than anything else. Now, when I said that it could be the next Blue Lock thingy, but in a girly way, I also mean that there is a tiny hint of selfishness, but it's presented in such a way that you are going to enjoy it, So let's talk a little bit more about this. It has comedy in it, which is interesting, but the comedic effect is done in such a positive way, which I think adds to the girly effect. So the comedic effect is given by Tsukasa, and every single time when he wants to be funny, or better said, when it gets the scene to be funny, he is complimenting someone, and he's complimenting them in such a hilarious but such wholesome way. So there is a point where Inori is performing, and he's like, I cannot wait for this to be in her documentary, but it's the drawing, the way he says it. Of course, the way he says it, it's in my head, but still, you get what I mean. Now, another thing which I really liked, it was the pressure when you begin something new, because this is actually his first time being a trainer, and she actually didn't get to enjoy skating until recently, because her older sister did some skating and her family wasn't very supportive of this. And it happens that Inori shows some very interesting traits. She is forgetful, she doesn't really fit in with others, and she also has a very interesting deal where she's giving worms in exchange to skating for free, because skating, you need to pay money to enter. And she becomes an outcast, as I said in the beginning. Now, what's also interesting about them is the self-comparison and lack of awareness in the beginning, because as they progress and develop, they become more optimistic about their self-comparison. So I remember for Inori much clearly what happened. In the beginning, she wanted to do that and that to resemble everyone, but then it started to have a negative effect on her. But as the story progresses, she is actually getting confidence, and I really liked this progress. It's also very natural because the more you learn something, of course, in the beginning you're going to feel a little bit unfit, but then you are going to learn that you can learn anything, you know, and you shouldn't set any sort of limit to yourself, because honestly, this leads me to the next point. You are going to get limits set by others. Like, that's something that was such a realistic effect in this manga, because you get to see not only adults trying to put limits on this little girl, but also kids. And the more I read this manga, the more I realized that really you should be your biggest fan, because others are going to be a hater by default to some degree. Like, even if they are not aware of this, they might still say something that will be a drawback to you, you know? And this is how she basically becomes a little bit selfish and wants to improve. That desire to improve, she thinks she is selfish by that, and that if she is stating what she wants to do, like to become an athlete, an Olympian in particular, she considers herself selfish because she started late, she is quite late to this race, but she is also lacking in skills because of that different time difference. And I really like how she is overcoming this obstacle. I'm not going to tell you how she does it now. What I also liked about this is how it presents how to improve a goal. You know, their goal is definitely related to ice skating, but one of the most important things is that early on they're introducing how to have a timetable for their progress, you know? And when it comes to progressing a skill, you can choose to perform it for longer, you know, for a long duration of time until you reach mastery, or you can try to learn as many things as possible. And I really like how he's explaining this. He's giving a very nice comparison of taiyaki, those fish cakes that have different fillings in them, and a sponge cake with strawberries on top. I'm not going to talk more about that, but it's quite interesting because both methods are valid, and I think it depends quite a lot on what you want to do, as he said as well. But that one made me think of a quote that I have read quite a few times, that if you want to master something, you should master the basics first, and then you're going to advance to more complicated stuff. And there are characters that are approaching their career in such a way, so it's very interesting. And then you need to remember that she is a student, he is a trainer. So at some point there are going to be choices that they have to make. But what's fascinating is that he is explaining that he can help her. However, there are going to be choices that she can change. Like, of course, she is in the ring, she is skating, she is deciding when to change a move or when not to change a move, or with what to replace it. And it really made me realize that sometimes we really count on others to take decisions for us, and we try to avoid taking decisions, but other times we are taking decisions and are ignoring others. And it's such an important thing to be aware of, you know, like, is this my decision or is this the decision of someone else? Because, well, as you expected, she could have accepted her mother's, let's say, refusal of her to skate. You know, it did take a little bit of convincing for her mother to let her skate. And what's really impressive about Inori is her mindset, you know, because she is thinking of always winning, which you could say is selfish, but it's also very motivating because we get to see how she's behaving with mistakes. As you know, many people get very discouraged when they are making mistakes, but something that I have noticed with the characters in this series in particular is that they are not dwelling that much on them. They are learning from them or just entirely skipping them, and I really love that. Like, it's such a way, because you cannot let your mistakes consume you, you know? Mistakes are always going to happen, you can learn from them, but well, you cannot really let them consume you. And there was a scene in particular, I will try to put it right here, where she was covering her eyes because sometimes we don't want to see things, you know, we don't want to see our mistakes or what we don't know or what we are lacking in, but we have to take a look so we can learn from that, you know. And I will also add a special section at the end of the video where I'm talking about some lines which I liked a lot from the manga, and I'm going to discuss those as well. And really, the enormous support that she gets once she shows much more potential than in the beginning. Of course, she always had Tsukasa there, you know, to support her and to encourage her. But she also had herself, like her will is what drove her in this entire adventure so far in these 4 volumes that I have. But the thing is, she also learned how to ask for that support, and that's something really impressive in my opinion, because people tend to be prideful and they might not always tell you like, hey, I need help, hey, I want to achieve this, so could you teach me this and that and so on. And there is a point in the story, in this first half of the story, where there is so much support that you just cannot help yourself to feel warm inside. However, there are also very emotional moments. In the first volume, I actually started crying. Like, they were crying on the page and I was crying outside the book, and I was like, this is so touching. And that's when I decided that this is the video I'm going to make for today, because initially I had something else planned, but you know, sometimes it's just better to go with the flow. And another intense emotion that I felt while reading this was anger, like pure anger, because oh my goodness, I know that people are also a-holes in reality, but like building characters in such a realistic way is quite interesting, because I don't know, it's this disassociation that they're characters and you can analyze them, you know, and learn from them and such. And it's like looking at reality from above, and then you realize, hey, this is how people behave in reality. I can learn from this, you know. So now let's talk about the lines that I really like. So in the second volume, this one, by the way, I love the cover of this one. So yeah, there is, you have no right to decide our future. And that is such a strong line. When I read it, I just had to take a break, and I was like, but this is such a reality, because even if you say something to someone, you know, in passing without thinking, you might actually decide their future without knowing, you know. So you being aware of what you are saying is important, but at the same time, the person who hears that line is also supposed to be aware, like, they are trying to decide my future and I'm not gonna allow it. So that line, really eye-opening. The next line, which I liked, no matter what anybody else tells you, you are already a full-on athlete. And this is actually a tip that I have seen in a few books over the years, that you should already consider yourself what you want to become. You know, even if you're a beginner, you are that thing. You just started running, you are an athlete. You just started learning languages, you are a polyglot, okay? You started writing your book, you are a writer, my friend. So really go for it. And the next one I really loved. Confidence doesn't come from others. And it's such a short but powerful line. I really loved it, because it's so true. Confidence comes from you. And I also realized a parallel between Tsukasa and Inori in this, because she got her confidence destroyed by the outer world, you know. That's mostly the destruction source. But in his case, it's from within. Like, he is his biggest critic, you know. And in both cases, you have to realize that confidence comes from you, you know. And that's a very nice parallel between them, which I like. Oh, and another parallel, by the way, is that he is not living through her. He doesn't have regrets about how he lived his life. I mean, yes, there are scenes where he has, but he is not projecting them onto her. That's what I'm meaning, you know? And it's very nice to see how she is living her dream, going through the path that she chose, and he is adapting with every single step that he takes, you know? And there was this very nice panel in one of the volumes where I guess the author or maybe Tsukasa talked. I cannot really tell who was talking at that moment because there was no character shown. So it showed that when someone is making a path, if you are going to walk in the same steps, you are not going to see anything new. So you basically have to always make your own path. But I just took a sideline with this one. The next line, someone who yields glorious results out of nowhere is a genius, and someone who does the same over many days and months, it's a prodigy. And that line was very interesting because we really like labeling people, don't we? There is always a label for something, a genius, a prodigy, a lost cause, and so on and so forth. And I don't know exactly how to feel about that, you know? In these volumes, these lines were reflected very nicely with the drawings and such, but it's really something that we have to think about. Why do we need labels, you know? Now, the next one, gotta stop dwelling on what I'm not good at now. And that is such a progressive mindset, you know, because you can focus on your mistakes and on your shortcomings, but you can also take, you know, another route. You can be positive. You can look at what you are doing and improving that to such a degree that no one can compete with you, you know? So yeah, very, very nice. Now, the last line, which I think is the most beautiful out of them all. When you can't reach your ideals, you give up and start regretting what you didn't have. And that's, well, I think I should give you the context for this, but I don't want to because it will have a much bigger impact when you're reading the book. But the thing is, we really enjoy blaming things that are out of our control, you know? And when we cannot live up to what we cannot control, like our ideals or dreams, because sometimes you can reach those, you know, it depends a little bit on how high you go, but sometimes we have this image, and right now I'm thinking of artists, those who are into digital art or traditional art, you know, because you have this art style in your mind and your skills are not up there yet, you know, that's your ideal, that's your perfect drawing style, and you start to feel bad about yourself, you know, because you're not improving at the pace that you want, you're not improving how you want, you know, and you really start regretting things that you do not have. But those are just ideals. You should just go ahead and adapt, just like Tsukasa, you know? And yes, I cannot wait for the anime for this series. And I'm also waiting for the other volumes to appear. There are 7 more, and I'm very curious about that. Because so far, this were a roller coaster, you know? It's not necessarily a roller coaster in a bad way. It's really sweet, it's really nice, but it really makes you think a little bit, you know, about your choices and about your goals and passions. And I suggest reading this manga or watching the anime, really. So until next time, bye bye.